Welcome to the Afternoon Snack Podcast. I'm your host, Meredith Root. This is a podcast about...
Well, hold up. I want to be part of the intro, too.
Okay, go ahead.
Never mind. You can do it.
Okay. Like I was saying, I'm Meredith Root, former engineer, CrossFit Games athlete, and owner of Tactic Nutrition. That was the one and only Alex Parker, former lawyer, also a CrossFit Games athlete, and co-owner of Tactic Nutrition. This podcast is about fitness, health, nutrition, CrossFit, business, mindset, and things that grind our gears.
Wait, hang on. Ivy wants to say something. Go ahead, Ivy. She's shy.
No surprise there. Our goal is to give you something to think, talk about, hopefully make you laugh a little along the way. Hello, Alex.
Meredith?
Sunday afternoon. And we're awake. Are we ready for this?
Yeah, we are.
Your eyes are like half. There's one that's like kind of
You were the one
closed.
who was napping earlier.
That's because I had a big day outside of unplanned outdoor chores. It started with...
And by unplanned, you mean unnecessary?
I wouldn't say unnecessary. Like the leaves definitely needed to be raked so they don't kill the grass that I've been obsessing over for the summer. Which, you have to admit, looks amazing.
Yeah, but isn't that thanks to the weed man?
Or the fact that I sought out like lawn care. I mean, I'm not out there spraying like
exactly
different fertilizers.
Well, you're
and
taking
weed
credit
control.
for it.
Look, like I spent a lot of time staring at that grass.
You did water it too.
Oh, I was out there with the sprinkler like every morning this summer.
I wouldn't say every morning, but
a lot of mornings.
Yeah.
And you had to move it every like 30 minutes.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I did rake the leaves, which you helped with. Thank you. And then pressure washed the front porch. And then that was going to be it. And then I was like, you know what? I'm just going to pressure wash the deck since I have it out. And then that took like quadruple the amount of time as pressure washing the front of the house. But it looks awesome, which you don't care about. I should have taken a before and after.
Yeah, you should have, because it looks the same to me.
What? I'll see what I have on my phone. It's like it's like the wood is like bright instead of like kind of grayish. Like you realize there's like a bunch of crap on it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's a very rewarding task.
I imagine so.
Yeah. So gosh, we leave for Chicago this week on Thursday for your marathon. Are you, like, besides the psychosomatic pain that you're having all over your body because you're inside of a week?
Yeah.
Are you feeling prepared?
I don't know. Okay, this isn't psychosomatic. I have a hip problem.
Sure you do.
It's been happening like every week on my long runs. It starts hurting, but like it starts hurting at like 25 or 30K. So I'm like, that's fine. Like I know I'm going to have hip pain. It happens first on my left. But like I can deal with it. But then I did my 5K last weekend. And then on Tuesday, I did a half marathon, so 21.1K at my race pace. And my hip started hurting at like 8 kilometers. But I didn't stop because I had done it out and back.
Yeah.
And I was really far from my truck. So I just continued to run and was able to like maintain my pace. But like my hip, whenever my leg like swung forward, it was hurting every single step. You know that feeling.
Yeah.
So I've just been babying that a little bit, hoping it gets better. It is already better. I worry about it starting to hurt early in the marathon and then me having to like deal with it for a very long time rather than a shorter period of time at the end. But I think it'll be fine. I'm only like 9 out of 10 super stressed.
But if it wasn't your hip, it would be something else stressing you out.
No.
Oh, okay.
The hip is adding to the stress. I usually sit at like an 8.
Okay.
And this is...
just added a point.
It's added a whole point.
Well, I was having similar hip issues and pain before my half marathon, and I decided for 2 reasons not to bring it up with you. And the first was I didn't want to like speak it into existence. I just like, if I ignore this and make some like reasonable modifications to my training and be smart, then it'll be okay. And like, I wanted to believe that, so I didn't bring it up. And then the second reason was I was trying to be respectful of the fact that you are still at that point about a month away. And I didn't want to like worry you.
Yeah, so I'm complaining about my hip constantly because it's what I do. Oh, I'm worried about my hip. What if I can't do the marathon? And Meredith comes out with it. She's like, oh, I know exactly what you're feeling. I had that like the week leading up to my marathon. Like to the point where I could even like, she said, I don't know if you noticed, but I was like lifting my legs into the car with my arms, like hands. Because I couldn't lift my own leg up. And I was like, what?
Yeah, just like kept that to myself.
That's so weird.
I don't know. I have this thing about like injuries before sporting events, and I see like the impact that can have. I'm not saying this is going to happen. I know you're different. But I have seen the impact that can have on someone's mentality going into a competition or a race or something. And I didn't want to give it any more power over my mind than it already had. And so I just kept it to myself.
Same.
Yeah. Just
like the other night I had a dream that I was going to the marathon, and in the dream my hip hurt.
Okay. Yeah. I guess we handle things like that differently.
But I think either way it's going to be fine. If I have to run with some extra pain, then so
I do think like before races and competitions you do become hyper aware of your body, and maybe notice things that are like kind of on a low level always there, and you just don't notice. Or I think you do have the power to like fabricate some, discomfort or find things to worry about or fret about. I don't think that's uncommon in sports, but not that that's what's going on with you. I don't think that's the case, but I think generally you're very aware because it's important and you're worried about the outcome.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think it'll be fine. My general outlook on life is things do tend to be okay.
Yeah, it will be fine.
You just deal with some pain for a while.
Which I was expecting anyways, so it should be fine.
Yeah.
So what do you want to talk about today?
Oh, I thought we'd talk briefly about the Noah Olson post that
his
went up
success story,
his transformation. Which like, okay, for background, I guess if people aren't aware of what on earth we're talking about, Noah Olson posted after the CrossFit Games wrapped up. Well, I guess it was several weeks because it was like the first week of September. He posted that he was 205 pounds and he felt like his weight maybe held him back at the CrossFit Games, and he just wasn't feeling light or fast or fit or whatever like he wanted. So it was his goal to lose 20 pounds and be at like 185 pounds, kind of closer to, I guess, when the season starts up. And I think like I made the assumption, probably like a lot of people, that his goal was to lose 20 pounds over the next, I don't know, 6 to 8 months. Just kind of like, slowly lose some weight, modify training. And I even wrote a piece about this for Morning Chalk Up where, there's certainly a impact that body weight can have on performance, especially for aerobic, like endurance type performance. And this is pretty well like documented and studied. But as far as CrossFit goes, it's so hard to say, like you can't really say that body weight, at least at an elite level, has that big of an impact. Because you look at Brent Fikowski, who had his best finish since 2017, and he's the heaviest that he's ever been. Yeah. So I don't think there's like a magic number for each person. I think it does depend on...
No, you look even from you look at the women's leaderboard and podium, and you have Tia, who she claims she's 115 pounds. Is that
110? I think. 50 kilos.
I think she actually does say she's like 130.
I think she has her weight listed at 59 kilos, which is under 130.
Okay. Anywho, and
let's
then
just
you
assume
have Laura Horvath,
yeah,
who's on the bigger end. So it
it has more to do with like functional body mass, how you move your body around. Like obviously bigger athletes do tend to move weight better, but not always.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just hard to like put your finger on like what is an optimal body weight and size for a CrossFit athlete, because like it depends on the person. But anyways, like,
well, to add to your context, in his original post, which was August 22nd, he said, to kickstart the season, I'm going to find a balance of both, and both meaning, I don't know, and slowly work my body down to around 185 pounds. I'm not the leanest I've ever been, but I do think a good bit of the weight I'll lose will be muscle. For our sport, I believe there is such a thing as too much muscle. I'll keep you posted on this small part of my pursuit to win the CrossFit Games. I'll likely be getting professional guidance to make sure I lose the weight in a healthy and sustainable way.
yeah, that's good context actually. And so, okay, so you read that post.
I love his progress photo. It's like he's just so ripped, so lean, so jacked. Like, okay.
Yeah, and it's not to take anything away from like his experience or what he's feeling, because like maybe he did feel big or inflamed, or like, you know, he wasn't fit or breathing well, whatever. Like whatever his experience was that led to that post is probably painted with some accuracy from some experience that he had. But anyways, you read that and you kind of think like I think he uses the words like slow and sustainable. And so in my mind, that's like,
and lose muscle. He specifically says like he probably needs to lose muscle, knowing he doesn't have a lot of fat to lose.
Yeah. And that was like kind of called out in my morning chalk-up piece, is the guy maybe has like maybe 4 or 5 pounds to lose to keep him at a safe and healthy body fat percentage. Yeah. So, okay, gonna lose some fat, but probably a lot of muscle over the course of 6 months in a slow and sustainable way to get down to a functional and like as strong as possible 185.
And a sustainable 185.
Yeah, fine. Totally fine. So I think we, like a lot of people, were a bit remiss when we saw the post on Friday that was basically like, hey guys, I achieved my goal of losing 20 pounds.
I'll read it. It's short. He posts, if you haven't seen it, he posts a photo of himself, another progress photo where to me he looks exactly the same. I reached my goal. This morning I officially weighed in at 185. I've never been a number on the scale guy, but it was nice to be able to know that I was on the right track every day, and it felt like a celebration to finally reach my goal. I lost just over 20 pounds in about a month, thanks in part to the guidance of at M2 Performance Nutrition. An increase in lower intensity activity and decrease in overall calories made it happen. Consistency played a big role, but there were definitely moments of indulgence along the way. I was hungry at times, but never felt like I was starving myself. Now it's time to slowly add some calories back as training starts to pick up. What I love about this is, if you didn't read the part about how quickly the weight loss, and by weight loss, I'm in quotes, happened, he sounds like a lot of my clients who have been working to lose weight over the course of 6 months or 12 months.
Yeah.
Like, you know, there were some indulgences along the way. I was hungry at times, but like, you did this for a month.
Mm-hmm.
Consistency?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know. You know?
Yeah. So what I took away from that is, and this is, again, not Noah's fault. He's not meant to be an expert on like nutrition and health, or really exercise for that matter. He just does it. Super nice guy, has absolutely no idea what he's talking about. My guess is that he stepped on a scale right after the CrossFit Games and was 205 pounds. Is he actually 205 pounds at that time? Like, probably not. I mean, he was.
That's what the scale says.
That day. But what was probably going on is like he just wrapped up the hardest competition of the season. Stress was through the roof from the competition itself, probably not performing the way that he wanted. Like his food intake would be extremely high after that week. Salt intake is extremely high after that week.
Just general inflammation.
Yeah, inflammation in the body. Super high after that week. So all of these things can lead to, in a 190 to 200 pound man, it would not be shocking to me for someone to weigh 5 to 10 pounds more than normal after a week like that. So I think it was a true 205, like if he had given it a week.
Well, not to mention all the training, the high intensity training going in. Like it was a few months of like high intensity training and competition.
Oh yeah.
So it wasn't just the week, it was the build up to the CrossFit Games.
The culmination, muscle mass was probably
and
up.
General stress that has an impact on your hormones and your
body's propensity to retain water.
Yep.
So, okay, 205 pounds right after the CrossFit Games. If he does absolutely nothing, doesn't step on the scale, doesn't say, hey, I want to lose weight. If he does absolutely nothing and just goes on his merry way and does what he usually does after the CrossFit Games, which is what most people do after the CrossFit Games, which is take it really easy on training, like back off the food intake a little bit, relax, go on vacation, hang out with friends and family, that kind of stuff, gets back on the scale a month later, I'm going to go out on a limb and say that without really even trying, he would probably be 10 to 15 pounds lighter without even being aware that change was occurring. And so what's like important, and like, the post went up and I was like, I saw it, people were sending it, and I felt like it was sending the wrong message. And I guess some people got in the comments and kind of said similar things. And Mike Malloy came on after the post went up and did put a video up kind of explaining what was going on, which is what I had put in my story ahead of that video, which is that you're looking at a tremendous reduction in training volume. Like stress went down, like stress management, like techniques were put into place. Calorie intake probably down a little bit.
I will add to calorie intake. When you start tracking your macros, whether you're a high level athlete or a regular person, you become much more aware of food quality.
Yeah, it's automatic.
And so his food quality probably increased at the same time.
Yeah.
Which can also impact. You have more fiber, your body's just functioning better.
Exactly. Gut health is improved.
Mm-hmm.
So you're looking at a pretty massive reduction in inflammation and water retention, just as a result of like doing a better job managing stress. Like training volume came down, so like joint inflammation, which does cause water retention in the body, that comes down. So it's not 20 pounds of body mass, which I think is really important to point out, because while Noah does say in the post, it was a result of calorie intake and training intensity, it doesn't say this is not body mass. And I think it's important to point that out, because someone who doesn't know a lot about training, doesn't know a lot about nutrition, but follows Noah Olson, reads that and they think, well, this guy that doesn't even have 20 pounds to lose can lose 20 pounds in a month. And then they look in a mirror and think, well, I have 40 pounds to lose, so I should be able to lose 20 pounds in a month. And so it's kind of this thing that we run into with athletes sometimes, where they aren't necessarily aware of the impact of the words that they say and the context, and why the context is really important.
Yeah. There were a lot of comments were like, good job, dude, you looking ripped. But there were a couple comments in there that said, is it a good idea for you to be promoting that 20 pounds of weight loss in 30 days is a good idea?
Yeah.
To most people.
But that's like the minority of the people in the comment section.
Yeah. The majority were like, sweet.
Which I think reflects the
well
base.
Well done. Good job, dude. Wow. That's hard work.
Yeah, I think that that reflects probably the level of knowledge that most people operate with regarding nutrition and expectations on what's safe and possible and what isn't. So yeah, that was it. It always gets me thinking when these posts happen, and like Tia has done this before with her, day of eating. The fittest woman on earth eats 2,100 calories a day. Like really?
Like, I don't think, like, it's not malicious in any way.
Oh, 100%
Like,
not.
and definitely not by, like, he is, and I can say this personally because I've met him and seen him in competition, one of the most genuine, like, nice guys out there, and would never want to do anything that, like, he even said, he's like, what goals do you guys have? What goals are you guys working on? I'm interested to know. And like, he probably genuinely is trying to inspire people to meet their goals. But what he doesn't understand, and what Tia doesn't understand when she's showing her day of eating, is like, people are looking at that and comparing themselves.
Yeah.
And it's like, what they're achieving, what they're saying they've done isn't true in the words that they've used, or they don't understand the impact that it has.
Yeah, and like nutrition is, I think,
or it doesn't apply to a regular person.
Right. And nutrition is it's a funny thing, and it's so much more than just like the food that a person eats. And I think that's maybe where the disconnect is with athletes at an elite level. People like Tia, people like Noah. Like, it's not to say that they've never struggled with what they eat or food intake or body image or anything. It's not to say that at all. It's unlikely that they've struggled with that recently and maybe have become less aware that that's a real issue for people. And when you say things that are not realistic and not based in reality, and don't paint a good picture of what's real, like people just, they don't understand.
Like, we've talked about this before. Ideal weight loss for most people, regardless of how much weight you have to lose, is about 0.5 to 1 pounds per week.
Yeah, to lose 20 pounds in a month requires a 2,500 calorie per day deficit.
Yeah,
mathematically,
so, like,
it's impossible.
To explain this, I watched if you've ever seen the show Naked and Afraid, those people are out there for 21 days, and some people only lose 15 pounds, but they're literally not eating or drinking.
Mm-hmm.
They're not doing anything like training. They're literally not eating, and they still don't lose 20 pounds. The males don't even.
Well, Survivor is the same thing. And like, they've also this is documented. They have like the starvation experiments from way back, like the Minnesota starvation experiment, which if you are in nutrition and haven't read or looked at that, like 100% do it. But they like, it's well known that when you deprive a human being of calories, like they lose weight in a very predictable way.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and it's important not only for kind of debunking Noah and saying like, no, dude, like you didn't lose 20 pounds. You can't lose 20 pounds in 30 days while also eating
of mass, body mass.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
And it's not saying he's done anything wrong. It's just the way that people might interpret that is that 20 pounds of weight loss while training, while moving, while exercising, while eating is basically impossible in 30 days.
Yeah. So,
but it's also, hang on a second.
Sorry.
Don't interrupt me. But it also, but what it,
so
what I was gonna, yeah. So the other thing.
Sorry for interrupting. Didn't mean to.
That's fine. Yeah, it's just kind of your thing. You like to channel Joe Rogan on these podcasts sometimes. So yeah, the other.
I just get so like.
You are so annoying.
Okay, I'm done now.
Okay. All right. So we can kind of debunk that 20 pounds weight loss is not really possible in 30 days if we're training and eating and functioning like a normal human being. But then the flip side, the other side of that coin is that when people say I'm eating too little, I'm not eating enough to lose weight. You know that, like, oh, you're in like starvation mode. That's not really a thing. If you don't eat, you will lose weight. Period. The tricky thing is like metabolic downregulation and like a safe calorie deficit at that point versus like we don't want anyone eating below their BMR. I don't know. That tangent worked better before all the interruptions, Alex.
I think the starvation mode, like, what do people mean when they say starvation mode?
People mean,
like, I think there's different definitions of that.
Yeah, well, I think like it got popular a few years ago, and Lane Norton has a little bit to do with this because he kind of like, and he's walked himself out of this theory, but he brought this up. He was like the one who said this, and so starvation mode was thought to be if you are in a calorie deficit for too long, your base metabolic rate and actually like daily energy expenditure will drop below the like your calorie set point, and will continue to do that and make it impossible to lose weight because you can't cut calories enough.
Can't create a deficit.
Exactly. But that doesn't happen. That's not a thing. And even we've kind of figured out that, you know, it used to be thought that some of the metabolic damage was permanent, but we've actually figured out that's not true either. So it will reverse, and actually it reverses quite a bit quicker than people used to think. So anyways, it's just people
So
say
if someone's at like 13 or 1200 calories and they're not losing weight, what does that mean? Like I think some people use the phrase starvation mode to describe metabolic downregulation.
To a point where losing weight does become more difficult.
And you have to continue to drop calories.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, then, but I guess starvation mode, there isn't really like, well, what calorie is like, how many calories do you hit starvation mode?
Yeah, so this has been, it's not really definable.
Exactly.
But what is definable, and this is, man, we want to go down a tangent really quick?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think this is interesting for people.
So what we can define, and this is by bringing people into a lab setting, is we can measure base metabolic rate and we can measure like daily energy expenditure very accurately, actually. Not with a watch, not with like a Whoop or anything like in a lab. That can be done. And so there's been a few experiments where they've done this, and the whole reason behind the experiment is to figure out why people who are reporting a low calorie intake between, let's just say 1200 to 1500 calories, and they're obese, they're people who need to lose weight. Why don't they lose weight on 12 to 1500 calories, despite that mathematically being a calorie deficit? And so the way that these experiments start, or a lot of them, to say all of them, but a lot of them start, is by bringing subjects into a lab and assessing their resting metabolic rate and energy expenditure. Because the first thing that you need to do in assessing people like this is say, like, okay, are we operating with like within predicted values for metabolic rate? And what that means is, I know on paper, just based on the metrics of this person, their age, their gender, height, weight, what their base metabolic rate should be, and then what their rate of energy burn will be. So I have that number on paper. But
base metabolic rate is how much your body burns, or the amount of energy your body uses just to stay alive.
Yeah, if you were to just sit on a couch all day and not move, that's BMR. So we have that number empirically. We know what that should be. But the reason we bring people into the lab is to understand, is there a discrepancy between what we think that it should be and what it actually is? Like, is there something going on, some sort of metabolic downregulation or like dysfunction that is causing this person to burn far fewer calories than we think they should be? And what they always find, researchers, when they bring these people in, is they fall within about a 5% range on predicted metabolic values, meaning that from a statistical like standpoint, these people are like bang on bullseye in the middle of the target, exactly where they should be. As far as,
so they're not special.
No. Right. And there's very few like medical conditions or situations that would result in metabolic dysregulation to the point where energy expenditure and needs would be different than what scientists think they should be. And these are people who have historically dieted. So if you're looking at anyone who should have downregulation, it's these people. So if I were to just tell you that fact.
And just to describe, so downregulation would mean if your what is calculated as your maintenance calories, say, let's just say they're 200, it's 2,200 for somebody who's overweight. If you drop them down dieting to 1,600 and they are at 1,600 for so long that now 1,600 is their maintenance calories. So they will not lose weight now at 1,600 calories.
Yeah.
That your metabolism would be, if that were to happen, downregulated.
Metabolic downregulation does occur.
Or you stop moving around less.
Yeah, and that's what I was gonna say. It's actually more a byproduct of like unconscious things that you stop doing. So you stop fidgeting as much. You're less likely to take the stairs. When you exercise, you do it for less time with less intensity. You park closer to groceries. You don't walk around as much. So your energy expenditure decreases without you really even being aware of it. And that's where the majority of our calorie burn from the day comes anyways. So when we talk about downregulation, that's going to be the biggest contributor. And then things that actually impact your base metabolic rate, your calorie needs at rest. If you are losing weight, you're going to lose some amount of that from muscle mass, and that's going to do it. The amount of energy required to digest less food is obviously less. So a lot of little things, but anything that nothing really that impacts lab values or creates what would be considered a statistically significant deviation from predicted metabolic values. So if I just told you that, if I said, here's this group of people and they're reporting that they're only eating 12 to 1,500 calories a day, they're not losing weight, we took them into a lab and their metabolism's working just fine. Where do you go next as a scientist?
Then you would probably start measuring food intake, or you would have them report intake.
Right.
And then compare that to actual intake.
Yep, which is exactly what these studies do.
Yeah.
And so what these studies have found, and what they've kind of, because it's the most usable result, is that the reason why people don't lose weight on 12 to 1,500 calories is not because they have metabolic dysfunction. It's simply because they're not reporting their intake properly. And so I think the statistic, and I should have pulled this up if I knew we were going to talk about it, but it's significant. It's like between 40 and 50%. People underestimate their food intake by 40 to 50%, and they overestimate their physical activity by like a similarly significant value. And so, with that amount of error, you're looking at someone who might be reporting 1,500 calories a day, who's actually eating closer to 2,700 calories a day. That's significant.
And I think the misreporting is sometimes intentional. I mean, I have clients who come clean with it and they're like, yeah, I don't put everything in my log. But then I also have clients or people in general in these studies who genuinely think that they're reporting accurately when they're not.
And they've done this with registered dietitians, like people who should be very aware and good at reporting food intake. And even the quote unquote professionals underreport by, I think, around 20 to 25%. And these are people who are professionals and also not trying to lose weight. So it's just kind of a phenomenon that we've observed. When I say we, I don't mean we like you and me are coaches. I just mean we as like a scientific community. And that's kind of like, it creates a gap between, okay, this is happening, why? And, what's really happening. And it's a difficult conversation to have, because when you suspect that it's occurring, you don't want to make accusations, because we know it happens accidentally a lot of the time. So it's how do we correct for it? Yeah, so that was kind of that. Where were we going with that tangent, or was that just like a fun fact kind of thing?
I don't remember.
We were talking about starvation mode,
yeah,
and just how like Noah's results are like there's sort of science that it goes both ways. But
yeah. So I guess to go back to Noah, what's scary and what bothered me about that post was the fact that people in society see on magazines, hear from their friends who do keto, which honestly is basically the same thing that Noah would experience, which is just like a loss of a lot of water weight
yeah,
in a short amount of time. Lose 30 pounds in 30 days, Weight Watchers promotions, stuff like that. And then but that's on a magazine. Like, that's in a magazine. It's like, oh, that's not real. We know that's not real. Alex and Meredith have made fun of that. Like, that's not real. That weight loss doesn't happen that quickly. But then they open their Instagram and they see somebody who's actually done it and saying like, oh yeah, I lost 20 pounds like this. It's like, ugh, you're not helping. That's not the case.
yeah.
And then, M2 did do a video on like explaining, like you said, why he was able to lose the 20 pounds in such a short period of time. But Noah Olson has like, I don't even know how many followers. He had over 30,000 likes just on that post. M2 has like 30,000 followers, and I'm pretty sure only a few hundred views on that video. So like that video doesn't really do much to fix the message being sent out.
Yeah.
And hopefully people don't follow Noah Olson for, weight loss tips and stuff like that. They probably don't. So that's fine. But still, the second question I have is, Noah, what happens when you start training very intensely again and your inflammation goes up and you don't have time or the energy to walk your dog all day and you have to eat more calories to support higher intensity training? Oh, and you're stressed because you're back in competition. Your body weight just magically stay at 185? No, it's going to go back up because you didn't actually lose body mass.
Yeah.
No, how was that not discussed in M2's video? And this isn't against M2. I guess that they wanted to address
The obvious
how
question.
it happened.
Yeah.
And clear people's minds. And they said, which I was happy about, somebody else's results are not your results. Because I'm sure clients were like, why haven't I lost 20 pounds?
I've only lost 3 pounds this month.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess that's...
But it's weird that, like, what is going to happen?
That's a conversation.
What does Noah think? He's just going to magically maintain 185?
Yeah, and it, like... I guess there is a possibility that happens, but it's not likely to happen. And then if you, like, he can say he's not a numbers guy, but like now he is a numbers guy. And as soon as you become a numbers person and you see that number go in the opposite direction, like that's just one more thing to get stressed about.
Well, especially when he's labeled his failure to achieve what he thought was a successful placing at the CrossFit Games due to his body weight, specifically the number on the scale, at least in part.
Yeah, so it's just that's going to be something that has to be managed by his coaching team.
Yeah,
when it happens, because it will probably happen.
It will be interesting. I hope maybe he'll just be like, that wasn't the right call.
Yeah, it's kind of
which has happened to athletes all the time.
Totally, and it's another one of these things where it's like. And this is like a recurring theme in our coaching and just the way that we are is like focus on the process and the outcomes will control, like they'll take care of themselves. And so if you're working with someone like Mike Malloy or any coach who is a nutrition, but also a lifestyle and performance coach, and they say to you like, dude, you're inflamed. Like you're retaining a lot of water because you're stressed out. So we have to, in addition to like, let's take a look at your macros, but we have to take care of your stress. And we have to do this and we have to do this and we have to do this. And it's all process related. All of that stuff is process related. because that's how good coaching works. Just focus on doing those things and focus less on what the outcome is, because the outcome is going to be the outcome. Whether you go down to 185 and then come back up to 190, 195, like it's going to be what it's going to be. If the things that you are doing make you feel better, managing stress, managing training volume, eating maybe a higher quality diet, like walking your dog, then keep doing those things and worry less about what the outcome specifically is going to be. Because as soon as you attach like emotions to a specific outcome, you put your finger on it, now that outcome and the achievement of it is what dictates your happiness, at least to an extent. And so that's what I worry about with athletes who do the body weight dance. They get all fixated on the number, because it's like, why don't you just do what you like, make the changes that you know you need to make anyways, and then like be the weight that you're going to be with those changes. I don't know. It's my 2 cents.
Yeah. I had a, I don't know. It's messy, because there are moments where you're like, I think sometimes even with myself, I'm like, man, if I could lose 10 pounds, I'd be faster at running. Or if I lost 10 pounds, I'd be better at gymnastics. I don't know. Sometimes there are days, and I weigh myself every day just for data. There are some days where I weigh like a couple pounds less or a pound less than usual. And it's like, oh, I'm definitely like, I feel lighter doing gymnastics. I'm like, no, you don't. You think 1 pound makes a difference? It's so mental. It gets in your head.
Yeah.
And you have to work hard not to let it. And like, that's why a lot of people don't weigh themselves. That's why, you have to really focus on the other things and not the number.
I remember, and this is just how deeply ingrained this type of behavior becomes in our society. I hardly ever weigh myself. I weigh myself maybe twice a year. Does the number ever change? Not really. Sometimes it's down now, I would guess, just because of all the running. But I remember specifically maybe like 6 or 8 weeks ago when my running volume was high. I had a run and it was hot and I sweat a lot. And I came back home and I hadn't eaten a lot before the run. Like I ate like an early breakfast, but like I that was kind of during that time where I wasn't tolerating food before runs very well. I think partially because it was hot. So I hadn't had a lot to eat beyond just like sort of simple carbohydrates. I'd sweat a lot, come home, go upstairs, take a shower, come out of the shower, dry myself off, look at the scale, think, I bet I'm really light right now. And I almost got on the scale just because I bet I'm really why does that matter? Like, why does that matter?
It's dumb because in your head the next day or 2 days later, you're going to be exactly where you always are.
Which is probably 4 pounds heavier than I was that afternoon. I didn't weigh myself. I was like, don't be ridiculous. You're being ridiculous.
Yeah.
But it's like, it is hard. Like, I think we just as a society have attached such a value to like being small for some reason.
Yeah. And I think CrossFit too, there's a lot of like numbers and results, like how much can you lift? What was your time? Like I'm not even that elite and I record everything. Like it says like not for time. And as soon as I'm done, I look at the clock. Mm-hmm. It's like a habit. It's like, what'd I get? I'm like, what? I wasn't even doing it for time.
Yeah.
And then obviously macros are huge in CrossFit, more so in CrossFit than in anywhere else.
Yeah.
In any other sport, there's so much focus on the data. Whoops are getting into CrossFit. It's so much. And so of course body weight's going to come into play. And not because it needs to. It's not like we're weightlifters and we're getting put in weight classes here. It doesn't matter. You look at the leaderboard and the range of body weights and body types are so big.
It's massive.
There's no correlation. I mean, maybe there is. I'm going to venture a guess and say there's no correlation between body weight and performance.
No,
CrossFit.
I already did that analysis.
Yeah.
So I did that for morning chalk up. Really quick. Just a really quick regression analysis, top 20, no correlation.
Yeah. So I don't know. to start focusing on the number on the scale is like, ugh, it's a slippery slope, I think, personally. But then again, you know, Noah might just have this as an experience, and he might say, oh yeah, 185 is great, I'm going to try to stay here. Or he might say, didn't work out, I'm just going to like focus on performance and like feeling good and not worry about the weight.
Yeah.
Which I'm sure has happened to a ton of different athletes. 100%. They try different things.
Yeah.
I had an athlete who wanted to lose weight. It was a female before the Open, and she lost a couple pounds. But like, she got to the end and was like, you know what? It's kind of like a big effort to like really meticulously track and like balance performance and weight loss. And she's like, and you know, then she's, you know, having to move her food around, meal timing to make sure it's around her workouts. And she did kind of see her performance dwindle a little because she's not fueling her body like she used to. And she was like, I actually think I just perform better being a little bit heavier and like happy and just well fed and energetic. Like, you know, there's going to be a give and take there.
Yeah.
And that's an example of just like experimenting with a few things and be like, yeah, no, I think this was good to know, but I'm going to go in this direction.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, let's up your calories and go from there.
Yeah.
But
totally. But I kind of generally think people do a lot of stuff they don't need to be doing.
Yeah.
Tracking, or I don't mean tracking macros, but just like all of the data that you can track these days. It's insane.
Yeah.
Like the gadgets.
It really is.
Tools and yeah, just all this stuff that really just makes it more complicated and more complex, I think.
Yeah. Have you ever been really into like super extra on something and realized it doesn't even matter?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I would kind of describe myself as like an extra person generally. It's funny. I'm just sitting here thinking about like CrossFit and my story arch, or my arch as an athlete in CrossFit. And I definitely like I started CrossFit in 2012, and I definitely went through like a gear phase where like if they made it and I thought it could make me better, I got it. Wrist wraps, knee sleeves, different belts, massage thingies. I don't know if you remember before the Hyper Volt or Hyper Ice Theragun things were around. You would just go get a car buffer and plug
somebody
those in.
had that.
So I had the car buffer. I had several different types of wrist wraps. I had every Rogue t-shirt ever made. I had headbands, lots of different shoes. I remember this guy came by one time at our gym and he had like carbon fiber shoe inserts, and I was like, 100% give me a pair of those. That's going to make me better. Yeah. So I went through that phase with CrossFit, and then it was weird. It's like the better I got, not by virtue of having any of that crap, the less stuff I used. And so now, and I'm not saying I'm definitely not the best at CrossFit that I've ever been in my life. But even when I was that person back in like 2017, 2018, I had become a minimalist with gear. Like no knee sleeves, rarely ever used a belt, like no wrist wraps, like very minimal stuff. 'Cause it's like, it didn't matter. And it was just like, it was like more crap to deal with and carry around and like keep up with. What about, did you ever do that with CrossFit?
Yeah, I was kind of like into the new stuff, but I wouldn't say I was to that degree, because I'm trying to think. Like I started CrossFit and I had these like New Balance like minimalist shoes. They weren't like the toe shoes. They were just like flats.
Yeah, I remember those.
Because somebody was like, you need flat shoes for CrossFit.
I think they were actually called like Minimus.
Yeah, they were. And they were green.
And totally had those.
They were really cool.
Yeah, they were cool.
I had a rope climb workout one day and they just got absolutely destroyed.
I tried to climb a rope in Nike Freeze one time, and that was like, they had these like chunks on the bottom. Like a literal chunk came out of the shoe. And I was like, oh, okay.
And so I think it was a few months later, I was in New York and we went into a Reebok store, and my mom bought me Nanos. They were the Nano 2s turquoise.
Yeah.
And I couldn't believe like how these things held up in comparison to these New Balance shoes. Like they were indestructible.
Yeah.
Like Nanos kind of are indestructible.
Yeah.
Which is impressive.
Yeah.
And then they had like, I don't know which was 5 or 4. That was like, they had the Kevlar and like, man, I still have some of those shoes. They're still in great shape. But beyond that, I don't think like I didn't start lifting with a belt until a couple years ago. Like, or a few years ago. Never have worn knee sleeves. Try to use Nanos whenever I can. Even though I use lifters for like heavy stuff. But I think too, like when you get into competition, you realize like you can't really get away with being like that equipment person because you don't have time to be taking a belt on and off. You don't have like, what if you're doing a rope climb, snatch, running workout and you can't wear your lifters?
Mm-hmm.
You kind of need to be able to snatch heavy in your Nanos or whatever shoes you're wearing.
Yeah.
And you see it, like I remember there was a year they had like running and pistols and people were running in their lifters because they legit couldn't do pistols without their lifting shoes.
Yeah, that would have been like 2014.
Yeah, so you kind of get stuck in these little like even today with some of my back issues, I'm like I need to wear my belt, but I'm also on the assault bike or the rower and like it impedes your breathing, limits that.
It does.
So you can't really be doing that. But you're kind of like that with like most sports.
Definitely. Okay, so I don't know, skiing probably.
Most recently Meredith has, and she says she's over this idea, but she wanted to buy some sort of boot inserts that analyze something about your skiing that make you a better skier. Okay,
so I will admit I sometimes get sucked into Instagram marketing, which like you're welcome because you're sitting on the byproduct of that.
Okay.
Podcast
a like extremely overpriced tiny hard couch.
So yeah, there's this thing called Carve and it's an insert that goes in your ski boot. There's a little thing and it senses the pressure and movement of your foot and it tells you like, okay, you're not like, I don't know, it gives you cues or whatever. Because I am trying to get better at skiing and I haven't paid for a lesson yet. And it like initially it seemed like a good thing and got good reviews, but then I was reading more reviews and people were like, just go get lessons. So I'm like, okay, I'll just go get lessons.
I give you a lesson every time we go out.
You do not. You give me a lesson and like, don't listen to Alex.
Okay.
But
that's rude.
I would say like, I will admit to with skiing, I've reverted back.
You're an equipment snob.
I am. And it doesn't even make sense why I'm an equipment snob because I am not a good skier. Like there's no poles that are going to make me any less intermediate at skiing. Like that isn't it. But it doesn't mean that I'm not going to try.
At least when someone sees you in the lineup for the chairlift, they'll assume you're good.
Yeah.
At least you have that.
That's true. Which is important to me.
When I first got back into skiing, I was so cheap because like I already had to buy the boots, the skis, and a new helmet and goggles. So when it came down to snow pants and a jacket, I was like, whatever, I'm just going to wear what I have, which was like a 10-year-old University of Alaska ski jacket. I bought pretty much the cheapest snow pants I could purchase.
They looked like kids. They were like navy blue, like no branding on them. Like they weren't fitted at all.
Super baggy. And then I just wore like underneath whatever I had. Like I think I just was wearing like
a couple of sweaters,
a cotton, some like layers. And there was one day at Sunshine, I think I was borderline hypothermic.
Yeah.
And you're like, I'm super warm. And I was wearing like 10-year-old mittens.
Yeah. And I had new mittens. I was wearing like all of the base layer stuff I had bought the last year.
All the latest technology.
I was so warm.
Everything but a heated jacket.
Yep.
And so on the drive home, I did go a little crazy purchasing all the, like, I will say merino wool is worth it. And so is a properly insulated jacket.
And like not 10-year-old mittens.
But Meredith always said like, I think I'm going to need new skis this year because I'm going to need to level up. I was like, okay.
I mean, I don't know. If I can come up with an
excuse. The goal is always to level up.
It is.
And level up can take on very different meanings.
I like how you say like, yeah, I went to Banff and like outfitted myself with a bunch of new. You didn't even have your wallet with you. I outfitted you.
I didn't want to have the option to buy anything. That's how I save money.
You can just make me spend it on
I just don't bring my wallet anywhere.
Oh, I need new mittens and new base layers, new jacket.
In terms of like nutrition and fitness, I don't think I ever did anything like crazy. I was really into BCAAs.
Yes, you were.
I thought those were like what were going to make the difference.
Is this recently?
No, this was like kind of when I started CrossFit, somebody was like, you need to start taking like BCAAs. And I was like, okay, I will. And like basically became addicted to them. This is like I recently switched from BCAAs to electrolyte tabs.
Which are actually going to do something for you.
Yeah, they're actually, especially now with all the running, they've been great to have.
Hilarious. So you were never like, were you ever really extra with your diet or like?
No, I think there was that one year I did the elimination diet, but that was for health problems. Like,
yeah.
And funny enough, I did lose 10 pounds in about 3 days because the elimination diet, you can't have hardly any carbs. And I cut out, basically my entire diet was carbs. So switching over was really bad. And then also on top of that, you have to cut out coffee.
Yeah.
Which if anyone's cut out coffee, you feel legitimately ill for 2 days if you go cold turkey, which I did. So I didn't even have that much of an appetite. And I lost significant amount of water weight in a span of 2 days. And I didn't have a ton of weight to lose. I think over the course of 6 weeks on that elimination diet, I lost like 12 pounds. And it wasn't actual, like, I wasn't eating carbs. And then part of it was a calorie deficit.
When I used to weightlift for like American Open nationals weightlifting, that level, I would cut from like 126 pounds to under 115 in 10 days.
Yeah. All water. Like you were telling me you were only eating like, well, I guess you have to cut carbs to cut water, but like you were eating like a mound of beans.
Oh God. Yeah, that was bad. It may have been, I'm just thinking it may have been closer to like 2 weeks, but between 10 days and 14 days. Yeah, over
That's
10
so
pounds.
Brutal.
On like, and
how'd you lift?
I only bombed out once, miraculously.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
and then
the power of adrenaline.
It is. I moved up. I remember after the last nationals at 53 kilos, I was so miserable. And that was the meet that I bombed out on because I felt like death. And I moved up to 58 and felt way better and didn't really have to cut.
Yeah.
Yeah. I used to be so into paleo that I'm actually embarrassed for myself to think back to that time in my life.
Did you feel amazing?
I think I had convinced myself I felt amazing.
I think like most people.
I think I actually probably did because I think I was legitimately eating like, I don't know, 150 grams of fat a day. Had to be. And just like crushing sweet potatoes.
Were you fat? Oh, so you weren't fat adapted.
No. But I used to, God, I felt so superior. I feel bad I don't know if any of my like old coworkers listen to this, but like I'm really sorry for how ridiculous I was.
Oh man, paleo. I don't know how anyone would get enough carbs in doing paleo.
You crush sweet potatoes.
You would end up eating a lot of fiber.
I think I was probably I legitimately ate 2 to 3 sweet potatoes a day.
That's a lot.
Like I would just go for a snack. I would microwave a sweet potato at work and eat it like a psychopath.
That sounds horrible.
I would eat like this dry Japanese sweet potato and just feel like the superiority like running through my veins.
Did you get like super high quality like grass-fed beef and all that?
All of it.
Yeah.
I was that
Did
person.
you put butter in your coffee? Was that a thing back then?
No, I was, yeah, it was a thing, but I was never that.
Okay.
I never wanted to ruin my coffee. Do you remember the Steve's paleo snacks? They used to come in plastic. You buy from Rogue. There was like uber expensive beef jerky with like oil and like nuts in there, raisins and things. I would eat those for a snack. I think I don't even know how I wasn't huge. I think I was just on my feet so much at work and like working out that, man.
I remember it was in 2014, I think. there was a Western Canada like girls CrossFit camp. So it was like all the people in Alberta, BC, Manitoba, Saskatchewan, and they came to Calgary to do it like a weekend. It was really fun. But my mom made dinner for everybody one night, and she went way overboard because that was back then when paleo was like legit.
People were like losing their minds.
Like they could not eat unless it was like high quality chicken that was free run, all of that. So the menu was, and there were like I think 12 or 14 of us. So it was like a lot of girls eating a lot of food. So she made appetizers that were bacon wrapped dates, classic,
or paleo,
prosciutto wrapped cantaloupe. That was another one.
Yeah.
And then for the main course, she had cut up into tiny cubes and baked sweet potatoes. And then she had bought chicken, but from the health food market. And if you've ever bought chicken from a health food market for the first time after only buying it from like Safeway, it's about quadruple the cost. I think she spent $200 or more on just chicken for this dinner. And then for dessert, she made paleo brownies, which again, like it was like the highest of quality honey, almond butter. I think there was zucchini in there for more moisture, as if you need more moisture, and dark chocolate. These things were basically like clumps of like chocolatey goo. I don't even want to know what the calorie content was in them.
That's like,
but I'm pretty sure like the ingredients for the dinner were like $1,000.
That's like, yeah, I mean, I used to make these. I actually had to look up the recipe while you were talking so I could get this right. I used to make these vanilla bean carmelitas from Paleo OMG. Do you remember that site? Well, it's still around.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. That's probably where she got a lot of those recipes.
Yeah. And so these carmelitas, which is it's like a bar with like a topping. So I'm not going to list off all of the ingredients, but I'll highlight. So this is for one, one preparation. I don't know how many these make, not nearly enough for what I'm about to say. So for the crust, 1 cup almond butter, 1 cup.
That's a whole jar.
Almond butter.
That's a whole jar.
1/4 cup shredded coconut, 2 eggs, 12 dates soaked in water for 30 minutes, pits removed, 5 tablespoons full fat coconut milk, vanilla bean pod cut in half lengthwise, seed scraped out with a sharp knife. That was my favorite part. Always my favorite part. 1 cup cashews, another 1/4 cup shredded coconut, 2 tablespoons raw honey, 1 cup dark chocolate chips.
I would legit poop my pants if I ate that.
It was like you take them out and you're looking at this pan, you're holding it. You're like,
and it weighs 24 pounds.
How this thing weighs as much as it does.
It's like lifting a 45-pound plate.
Yeah. I remember that was my go-to paleo dessert when I had to do a paleo dessert for the gym paleo potluck.
Yeah, of course it was.
Yeah.
That's hilarious. No, I never did paleo. That's probably honestly why I made it to the games in 2015. Because I had a huge advantage over everybody else.
Everybody else was eating way too much fat and not nearly enough
and
carbs.
I had carbs going for me.
You're like, I eat bagels, bitches.
But actually,
I know.
Come to think of it, that might actually be the reason. Everyone was self-handicapping without even knowing it.
They had no idea. They had no idea. But I would say besides the skiing, like I don't really do the whole like trying to buy things to be better. I mean, I buy stuff for my bike, but that's just because I really like bike stuff. You know how it is.
I do.
Alex is we haven't talked much about mountain biking, or at least not in a while. So I'll share. Alex is one of the best like natural mountain bikers I've ever seen. Like just picks lines, like rides really well. I knew you'd be good.
You thought it was a fluke.
I did.
You thought I was as good as I was, but you thought it was a fluke. Like yeah. I don't know how she made it down that.
But actually, she's just really good. I guess it's like you did used to
Thank you.
bike and like the downhill skiing and like just like your natural ability to select lines is pretty good.
And just general athleticism.
Even though, like, I don't think your riding positions were actually all that
No, they
stellar
weren't.
because I helped you.
Yeah.
And then you got even better. So that's great. That's good for my ego. But the best part about Alex is that she's really, really good at riding bikes and knows absolutely nothing about bicycles.
Yeah, there was a day where we were mad at each other and I wanted to go biking. And I went outside and my tire wasn't pumped up all the way. And I was like, I guess I can't go.
Like, legit, she doesn't pump her own tires. Doesn't know how to take a wheel off. What else did we learn?
None of that stuff is necessary when you have somebody who you can do it for you.
Yeah, clearly.
I did know how to do all that, some of that stuff. And like, I used to be really into like tuning skis and the intricacies, but I do not have the time or the patience anymore.
Yeah. That's okay, because I love it.
What pains me now is, I mean, generally with skiing, I never really had to buy anything for myself because number one, my parents would pay for it because I was a kid. And then when I got good enough, I just got everything for free, including tickets. Like, you didn't ever have to pay for tickets when you're on like Alberta ski team. So now paying for tickets is like the worst. Paying for all of your equipment also sucks. And also getting your skis just simply like waxed or tuned, it's like $85.
I know.
When I used to do that in my basement in like 30 minutes, an hour. I used to have somebody who did that for me for free, who traveled around.
Was it your dad?
No, we had like a chef, but it was for our skis, like
A ski guy.
a ski guy.
Yeah.
And you just come down in the morning and they were ready to go.
Man, what a life.
It really was. And so now I'm like, God, no wonder I didn't want to get back into skiing.
Way too much work.
It was expensive and a lot of, mostly just expensive.
Yeah.
But yeah, not to brag or anything. That was just the way it was. I was spoiled.
Yeah. Spoiled and awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I get that.
That was kind of a bit of a random episode, but
We got it all out, I think.
Yep.
That's a little update. Probably won't be able to do another one until after the marathon. So, or maybe we'll just bring like travel mics and
no.
But we'll be videoing and doing Instagram, staying up to date that way. So keep up with us, or I guess Alex. I get to be the media monkey for the weekend. It's gonna be good. Are you excited?
I am.
Are you ready to be done?
No, I feel like I need more time.
I
need more time.
I thought there's no way I'm going to be able to run my goal, and then I did it. So
I hope.
That'll be you.
I hope so.
And it's going to be great weather. Your parents' first time traveling back or anywhere since pandemic started.
So all stress levels will be high, so everything will be as normal.
Yep. Going to get to the airport 8 hours ahead of time. We're just going to spend the night there. I think that's the best solution. It's going to be awesome. I can't wait. But thanks for listening. We appreciate you. And if you made it to this point, wow, you must have not a lot going on in your day. But if you have any suggestions, comments, you know where to find us. And we will talk to you guys again really soon.